The flood. A myth that remembers us. Waters that cleanse, torrents that erase, waves that remember when we forget. The flood myth is not just a story, it's a spiritual pulse echoing through every age, every culture, every soul. Long before written language, before temples or towers, there was the flood, and it has never truly receded. It isn't owned by the Bible, it belongs to everyone, to Mesopotamia, to India, to the Andes and the Dreamtime. It's not history, it's a mirror. It doesn't ask if it happened, it asks if we've heard it. Across continents and centuries, civilizations whispered of a deluge, not just a flood of water, but a collapse of meaning, of order, of memory. Why did the gods unleash it? Why did only a few survive? And what did they carry with them across that sea of forgetting? In this journey, we'll trace the flood not as a fact, but as a spiritual cipher. We'll follow its course through clay tablets, sacred texts, and living myths. Not to decode the past, but to awaken the present. Because the flood was never about water. It was about us. Mesopotamia, where the flood first spoke. Long before Genesis, on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates, the flood had already spoken. On sun-baked clay tablets, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, we meet Utnapishtim, the first ark builder. Not a prophet, not a priest. A man who listened when the gods murmured behind the veil. The Sumerian gods, wild, temperamental, flawed, decided to erase their creation, not because humans sinned, but because they were noisy. Their cries kept the gods from sleeping. But one god, Ea, whispered to the walls of Utnapishtim's house. He didn't shout, he didn't command. He let the wise man hear through silence. This is esoteric tradition. The divine does not thunder, it echoes. Only the inward ear perceives it. Utnapishtim builds his ark, not a boat, but a cube. The cube, the perfect symbol of earth, of structure, of sacred geometry. Inside, he places seeds, animals, craftsmen, knowledge. It's not survival, it's spiritual distillation. For 6 days and 7 nights, chaos roars. The waters don't just fall, they howl. Until at last, the ark rests on Mount Nisir. And the first act of rebirth is not planting or speaking. It's gratitude, a sacrifice, a reconnection to the divine current. Then he sends forth 3 birds, the dove, the swallow, the raven. Each one a messenger, each one a symbol of the soul's return to the visible. This myth isn't about divine wrath, it's about inner vision. Those who see beyond words, who act in stillness, they become the carriers of memory. India, the cosmic flood, and the boat of Dharma. In the Vedas, the flood returns, but here it speaks with a cosmic rhythm. Time in India isn't linear, it spirals, breathes, cycles. Destruction is not punishment, it is prelude. Manu, the first man, encounters a fish while washing his hands. But this fish speaks, and behind its scales lies Vishnu, the sustainer of all things. Matsya, the fish avatar, warns of an age-ending flood. But he offers a solution. Build a boat, gather the sages, the seeds, the sacred texts. Preserve not bodies, but Dharma, the divine law. Manu ties his ark to Matsya's horn and is pulled across the cosmic waters, not by force, but by divine alignment. When the waters calm, a new yuga begins. The wheel turns. In this myth, water is not destruction, it is illusion. Maya. It washes away the form so that essence may be revealed. The flood is not outside, it is the dissolving of ego. And the boat? Not wood, but wisdom. The vessel of consciousness that rides illusion without sinking. China. When flood becomes a test of the sage in Chinese myth, the flood arrives. But it is not stopped by prophets or gods. It is met by patience. Yu the Great does not part the sea, he walks it. When the waters rise and the land drowns, Yu is chosen, not for power, but for humility. He maps the terrain, he listens to rivers, he observes the Tao. For 13 years, he does not wage war against water, he channels it. He teaches humanity to flow with nature, not against it. He returns home so changed his own son does not know him. This is not a tale of miracle, but of alignment. Yu becomes emperor, not by conquest, but by virtue. Because in Chinese cosmology, harmony with nature is the highest authority. The flood here does not separate the wicked from the pure. It reveals who is attuned, who has learned to adapt, who carries the way. The Americas. When Earth itself judges in Mesoamerica, the flood myth is visceral, symbolic, brutal. In the Popol Vuh, the gods create humans from clay. They dissolve. From wood, they walk, but do not pray. They forget. So the world revolts. Animals attack. Tools rebel. Resin rains from the sky. This is not divine anger. This is Earth correcting imbalance. Humans became hollow, without gratitude, and the world cut the cord. Among the Inca, the god Viracocha sends a flood to erase a race because they forgot the sacred. When waters fall, Viracocha walks across Lake Titicaca and speaks creation into being, a new humanity, born not just from water, but from word. Here, creation is not a gift. It is a responsibility, and only those who remember the sacred word, the vibration of truth, survive. The Hopi, descent into the sacred earth. The Hopi people speak of worlds within worlds. We live in the fourth world. The previous three all ended in fire, ice, and flood. Each time humans lost connection to the Great Spirit, and each time a few were warned, not by gods, but by the ant people, beings who live below, in the earth's womb. During the flood, the chosen descend. They do not escape upward, but inward, into caves, into silence, into the stone's memory. They emerge changed, purified, capable of building again. This is esoteric descent, the flood as inner initiation. The unconscious overwhelms the surface. Only those who embrace the underworld return transformed. Atlantis. The memory of the forgotten Plato didn't just imagine Atlantis, he echoed. From Egyptian priests to esoteric orders, Atlantis lives as a memory buried deep, a civilization lost not to nature, but to imbalance. Atlantis fell not because it lacked knowledge, but because it lost wisdom. Technology, power, control, severed from the sacred. In occult traditions, Atlantis is an archetype, the peak and the pit, the potential of humanity and its failure. It was not destroyed. It collapsed from within, swallowed by its own shadow, like us perhaps. When spirit is ignored, even paradise sinks. The Bible, covenant in the waters Noah's Ark, is the most recognized, yet the symbols remain veiled. 40 days of flood, like 40 years in the desert, 40 days of fasting, not punishment, but purification. The ark floats not on water, but on divine instruction. Every measurement, every detail, a code. In alchemy, it is the athanor, the vessel where transformation occurs, where base matter dissolves to reveal spirit. At the end, a covenant, not a threat, a rainbow. In esoteric tradition, the rainbow is the full spectrum of light, the bridge between worlds, the awakening of divine memory. The flood is not the end, it is the initiation. The Book of Enoch. The hidden flood before the rain, the earth was ruled by giants. The Nephilim, offspring of angels and humans, they brought metal, enchantments, seduction, knowledge, but not wisdom. The flood in this tale was not cleansing sin, but sealing secrets, before they could devour the soul of humanity. But again, knowledge was not evil, only its misuse. Light untethered becomes shadow. Power without reverence becomes poison. The flood is not the villain, it is the boundary, the inner flood, solution. In alchemy, there is a phase called solution, the dissolving. It is where the old form breaks, where ego melts, where the unconscious floods the psyche. It is terrifying and necessary. The flood is not a story, it is a stage. When culture forgets soul, when noise drowns the inner voice, when progress outpaces wisdom, the waters rise. So the question is not, did the flood happen? The question is, what in you is drowning? What in you must be washed away? And have you built your ark yet? Not from wood, but silence, but intuition, but memory. The flood does not forget, but maybe it comes to remind us who we are before we forget again. Thank you for watching.